Hello, it's Henry here. Welcome to 2026. This is my beginning of my tripping year. At the end of 2025, I did a day trip with Frank, and on the way back, I carried my canoe and some day stuff, and in a single portage, and I was carrying about 95 pounds, and this was about 800 or 900 meters long. And I was able to manage that without any trouble. On my canoe trips, I really dislike having to double portage. It wastes a lot of time with no real gain, increased chance of injury or whatever. And I just much preferred trying to do a single. Back in the day when Frank and I shared some gear on trips, we did single portages, and but when I've been now doing double solos or solo trips, my loadout is around 145 pounds, including the canoe, and that's just a little too much. So after thinking about it a bit, I've already reduced my pack weight by say 10 or so pounds, and I'm not really, there's not a lot of room there to gain much more. And so the only real choice was to see what I could do about the canoe. Now, I had seen canoe weights, they have certainly come down with the new materials into the high 30-pound range and so forth. But I needed to get a loadout that's getting around 100, 105 pounds for a 6-day trip the first day. And the only real way then was to see if I can get that canoe weight even lower. I had a look around. My friend had bought 4 or 5 canoes from Swift here in Ontario and liked them. And I'm all for buying local, and I went ahead and looked, and they was able to get a 14-foot Prospector canoe with carbon fusion that weighed only 25 pounds, which is just an insane number for all of us in the canoe world. I added a pound to put in the foot bar, and of course, I was able to get that just before Christmas. And so it's been sitting in my garage, and I've been staring at it for 3 or 4 months now, so can't wait to get it going. I've made some modifications, things I've attached to the canoe. I don't have a yoke, for example. Instead, I use my paddles. The canoe is so light that you don't need the same carrying structure that you would normally need. And I will describe all of this during my trips and so forth this year in due course. So anyhow, 22nd of April, I went for a drive. Lake Nipissing, near where I live, was completely frozen on the 21st. And on the 22nd, I decided to take a drive to this bay called Northwest Bay. It's just and I just wanted to see the state of the melt, figuring there'd be shore leads. I get there and it's completely melted. I couldn't believe it. And so I went back and got myself sorted out and came back to try the canoe out. And I did a lap of the bay. It's about 7.8 kilometers to test the canoe for the first time. And this video tells that story. Thank you very much for watching. Levine Dock. And this is the first ever time I'll try out my new Prospector 14 Swift canoe. So let's see what happens. Might be too much. Let's see what happens. Okay, so this is my first paddle in the new canoe. I've gone 200 meters. So my comments. So first, the configuration. The canoe has the 2 ballast jugs in the bow, and it has GPS, monitor, CRS,
Only the ACAM2's on board today because we're still learning things here. See how this boat tracks, how fast it goes, and everything else. It seems to be moving around and they're like pushing to the rear as if the rear is too light. So it may be that I have too much in the bow. That well could be. We'll have to figure that out. Normally we'd have a pack in the bow, but you can see the canoe does turn around in a circle more than the red canoe does. So the stability in the canoe doesn't seem too bad. Now we haven't done any rough water, obviously. So let's get paddling here and see what we get. In the wind, it is certainly pushing the lighter end of the canoe around more aggressively than I'm used to with the red canoe. Also, I would say that the speed, we're about 5.5, 5.8, 5.9, 6 with a bit of wind. So we'll go across the bay here and see what we can find. I think we'll have to be careful getting into the canoe. I think it's less forgiving getting in, although my red canoe wasn't that forgiving. I think this one will be less so. So we'll have to be a little mindful of how I do that. And we'll just have to see. I'm going into probably 5 to 10 kilometer little rees, and I'm doing 5.9. My paddle is shorter. I'm using 2.5 meters in this canoe instead of the 305. I would say the canoe doesn't make me feel nervous. I do like the foot bar. I'm finding that comfortable, and pressing on it when I paddle, I think that may make me more efficient. I'm still averaging over 6 coming across, like I said, into a slight breeze, not very strong. And it's pretty nice out here tonight. I was into 10 to 15 kilometer headwinds, and that knocked my speed down to 5 to 4.7. I also, of course, feel in my shoulders that I've done nothing paddling wise for 7 or 8 months. Saw a bald eagle and some trumpeters, swans. Pretty nice. The canoe is very nice. It's comfortable, the seat's comfortable. It's stable enough for what I want to do. I think the only real tricky part's going to be when I'm in getting in or getting out of the boat. The balance is a little bit of a concern because I found I had put 66 pounds in the bow and it was digging a bit and a little hard to track, so the rear end was high and it was swirling around a bit in the wind and so forth. So I put one stop, pulled over, and I put one jug in the back, so that balances the load. Now the canoe is amazing. It tracks beautifully. However, the concern lies with when I'm tripping, I have the one pack. Now it weighs, depending on the trip, anywhere from 45 to 60 pounds. And its weight will be comparatively closer to my feet by maybe 30 or 40 centimeters than it was when I had the 2 jugs in here. That'll help. But I don't have an answer to put something in the back. And so I think it's going to still dig a bit and be a little light in the rear. Now the under seat bag is going to add another 5 or 6 pounds to my mass here as I sit here. Won't be carrying much more myself, so that's not going to change too much. So instead of it being even Steven, it'll be 50-ish in the front and then another 5 or so underneath me, but not as far back as the current one. So there will be a bow down feel to this. It just won't be as aggressive as it was when I started. I thought it would be a little bit quicker than it is right now. We'll see as the year goes by and I get fitter, to be fair to everybody. My Canoe workstation here at the front is working as advertised. The pole works nicely. The rear station held the pole, that was really nice. I'm able to use the shorter paddle in this with the foamies on it. It doesn't seem to affect me. It's just about right. And I think the added benefit of the foamies for portaging is that I'm going to be able to, they'll also help if I drop the paddle in that it'll float. Well, we're going to test that later on today in shallow water. And so the plan today, given the very short timelines, is to do about 6 or 7. I want to be off the water before the sun goes down. Well, we still have time for that. And the going back should be a little easier because first the boat is balanced better, and secondly I'm going with the wind, or at least with no wind, so either way it should help a little bit. So we'll see. So I've done 7.5 kilometers. I'm back at the dock, as you can see perhaps behind me, and really enjoyed the canoe. I went into the wind, which was probably 10 to 15 more or less, and of course I'm adding 5 of mine too, and it was maybe 4.7 to 5.2. Coming back with the flags on the cottages were basically limp on the way back, so I was doing 6.2, 6.3, and I also did a sprint of about 20-25 strokes, and I got to 8.7, which is pretty quick for me, I think, in a canoe by itself. So it handles pretty nicely. I don't feel ever that I'm going to tip. I'm very pleased with that. The canoe is unbelievably light. So the portaging thing, we're going to test, one of the next tests will be to portage it at home with weight and see just how much fun that is. I think if I do a day trip, I take one of these jugs, not both, put my pack in one on front or back, whichever it's going to be, and manage it that way. And I think if I'm doing a real trip where I've got my stuff, I think I'm just going to have to try and keep it as close to the center of the boat as I can. But honestly, other than that, there's really nothing to talk about. It's just really quite nice. If I compare it to my other boats, it's nice to be narrower and not have to have the longer paddle, and I don't bang my fingers on the gunnels the same way, so that's nice. I like the foot bar. That's pretty nice too. I think I'm enjoying that. And really, other than that, it paddles like a canoe. So, it's not like I'm going, kilometer an hour faster or something like that. And I would have been nice if it would go a little quicker, just because and we'll see as I get fitter and as the year progresses how that goes, especially. But I think if there's a difference, it's not going to be very much. Now, mathematically, the maximum speed calculation The other canoe was 5 miles an hour, which is 8 kilometers an hour. This one was 5.25. So there you go. It's getting close. You know, it's not quite 8.7, but it's in that. So it's about 5% more. And I would say it's not any more than that. But that's really not why I bought the canoe, so I'm not going to fuss over that too much. My innovations seem to be working. We got to test a few things still, a little ways away. And before I do a trip, so basically with this canoe, I'm going to do 2 full day trips, pushing 30K with everything, and I take what comes with wind and waves and so forth, and just see how much fun it all is. And then I want to do 1 day trip with just the day stuff with me, but where we have portages and see how that goes. And then I think I'm ready for my first trip. So it's nice development, and I'm really grateful to have it, because I really think that right now, my whole point of this, of course, was single portaging. And I think that right now there's nothing I'm seeing that makes me think I can't do that. So, thank you for coming along, and we'll see you in the next one.